Monday, March 30th, AD 33. This is a day when we see two quite startling actions carried out by Jesus. The first one happens early in the day. He and his disciples had spent the night in the town of Bethany, and in the morning they make their way westward back to Jerusalem, and along the way they pass by a fig tree covered in leaves but having no fruit. Jesus curses the fig tree and it withers and dies. The disciples are taken aback and they don't understand, but they move on and finally make it to Jerusalem, entering the outer courts of the temple. And this is where the second action takes place. And remember, it's the week of the Passover festival. Everything is bustling. When Jesus looks around, he could see the doves in their wicker cages and the new spring lambs in their straw, and probably the agitated cattle kept perpetually nervous by the smell of blood coming from the temple sacrifices. He could see the tables where you had to swap out your dirty Roman coinage for the temple's own clean currency before you purchased your animal sacrifice. He saw this whole temple machine turned into a commercialized center, and he's filled with anger because you can't sell forgiveness and you cannot put a price tag on peace with God. So Jesus begins to yank at the timbers and grab the planks, flipping over their tables, sending piles of silver coins clanking onto the temple floor. He drives the merchants out of the place, justifying his actions by quoting Isaiah 56 and Jeremiah 7. My Father's house is to be a house of prayer for all nations, but you've made it into a den of thieves. So the fig tree and the temple, what do either of these mean? In Mark's gospel, it's easy to see how these scenes mutually interpret one another. Mark places the cursing of the fig tree next to the temple cleansing, next to Jesus' explanation of the fig tree, a literary technique aptly called sandwiching. The fig tree and the fig tree explanation as two pieces of bread, and right in the middle, the meat, the temple cleansing. And we have to remember that the temple was the actual presence, the physical living presence of God among his people. The cleansing of the temple was an act of judgment against Israel. For like the fig tree, they made a great display of religious activity, but they didn't bear real fruit. Their religious activity had become compromised. They claimed to follow God, but they were dead at the root. The fig tree is parabolic of Israel. They had no fruit, therefore they were cursed. This is also a sideswipe at the high priestly families. They were not attuned to the heart of God, whose temple they were in charge of. What Jesus has now done is mark himself out in the authorities' eyes as not only a troublemaker, rebel rouser, but a genuine threat to their power and authority. Jesus had acted under the watching eyes of those he knew would kill him, and now they just needed a plan, and they would get their chance soon enough.